Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's another episode of Let's Talk Broncos, the Thursday edition. To my right is Frankie Abbott. Frankie, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic. It's the middle of free agency season. I'm ready to get right on into it. Joey, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. It was a snow day in Colorado today. Crazy snow day, blizzard-esque stuff going on around here. My car got stuck in the snow. I got stuck behind a 16-wheeler that got stuck in the snow. It was a disaster, but anything in the name of work, Frankie.
Exactly.
So yeah, we have a really fun show for you guys today. We are going to be talking about what the Broncos have done in free agency and how that affects the Broncos NFL draft plans. Is there anything that has happened in free agency that affects the Broncos draft plans? Before we go into that, let's get into the recent news, Frankie, which honestly is free agency. Brandon Jones and Malcolm Roach, now Broncos. Brandon Jones, formerly of the Miami Dolphins and Texas Longhorns. It's like Texas Longhorns Broncos now. And then Malcolm Roach, who is a defensive tackle from New Orleans Saints. Another Texas Longhorn. Frankie, what do you make of these two moves?
They seem like fine signings. They've got decent upside. They seem like pretty decent value contracts. Guys that kind of had people in front of them on the teams that they were on prior. Malcolm Roach also kind of dealt with a lot of injury history, so they were able to be acquired at kind of, I'd say, much more value contracts than a lot of the deals we're seeing being handed out, especially when you talk about Malcolm Roach compared to a lot of the defensive linemen around the league that are just breaking these massive bags. But, I mean, decent signings for Denver. I mean, just kind of gives them more bodies to have for this season to kind of roll the dice on, see if they can have some upside and become surplus value for them. As far as I think Brandon Jones will end up being either just kind of one of their three starting safeties. I think that's kind of, you need to have, I think, three capable safeties in today's league. I think he'll kind of be in the mix for one of those three. I don't know necessarily who will be the de facto starters. But I mean, he makes a lot of sense for both guys. I think make a lot of sense for what Vance likes to do, as much as that might, make you optimistic or a little sad. I'd say they're both kind of those, I don't want to say tweener, but kind of hybrid players. Roach is someone that you can have line up on different spots of your defensive line. You can kind of use him as a nose, but he's a little bit like, he's not like your typical like 320-pound guy, but he does have length. He does have a lot of power. So you can have him play as your nose, play a little bit of 3-tech, bump out to 4, play like 2. You can have him pretty much just play anywhere along your interior. He'll be just a good rotational piece in Vance's defense where you need your defensive lineman to kind of be coming in and off the field for you. So he'll kind of be the replacement for Jonathan Harris this year, who was a little bit underwhelming last year, obviously, and just didn't fit too well. So I think he'll be kind of a decent piece to kind of watch. But again, I was talking to you about this before the show. I think there is a little bit of a misinterpretation of what he might be and maybe a little bit of not too much hope, sorry. But Malcolm Roach, up until this point in his career, he has had one season, or I think he's only had one season where he played over 300 snaps. It was 2 years ago when he played 316 snaps. Last year, he only played 290 snaps. Your starting defensive lineman in the league is probably playing anywhere between like 600 and 900 snaps. So projecting him as the starter, I don't think that is the case here. Again, I think this is going to be the 4th or 5th guy in the rotation, but he will be an upgrade over what they've had because they've kind of just had, sadly, some guys that have been getting pushed around a little bit. I think he'll kind of be an upgrade there. But again, I don't think that this is, I don't think that this guy's coming in to like replace DJ Jones or something. I'd honestly be a little worried if they did, because again, I don't know if you can really rely on this guy to give you more than like 8 games, but it'll be interesting to watch out for. And then Brandon Jones is just kind of like your very modern NFL safety. He's like 6'1", but I'd say probably like just under 200, maybe just at 200. And I mean, he can line up everywhere. He can play deep for you. He can blitz. He can play in the box. I think he can kind of play as your dime or nickel if you need to. Really good movement skills on that guy, but a little bit of issues is just an open field tackler. His angles aren't the best in the run game and just kind of in bringing down receivers, which when you have, your last line of defense, your safety, especially if he's playing as that single high role, you'd kind of like your guy to be a little bit better in that regard. But nevertheless, he is still like a plus player, I think, in the coverage department. And I think for the deal they got him for compared to what they were paying a guy like Justin Simmons, it's pretty positive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I haven't even watched the film of these guys yet, Frankie, so I was really interested just listening to you talk about them both. From what I understand, Malcolm Roach is a good run defender. Frankie, you concur?
Yeah.
Okay. So, hey, just if you're adding run defense to the Broncos, that's a big deal to me, right? Just because last year it felt like every time, and we had this conversation a bunch on the show, every time Jonathan Harris came on the field, bad things were happening in the run game. So, if you're replacing Jonathan Harris with Malcolm Roach, I think that's positive. You want to get better in the run, and Malcolm Roach does that. Brandon Jones, the Broncos just had to get better at safety, or after Justin Simmons left, right? Not better at safety from last year. This is one of those moves where it's like, okay, yes, it's one of those moves where you're admitting we have to get worse before we get better, right? You're not getting better than Justin Simmons, but you're getting a younger and cheaper player there. So there's some positives there as well. But Frankie, let's talk about the guys that the Broncos did re-sign, who they brought back. Lil Jordan Humphrey, Michael Burton, Adam Troutman, Will Lutz, PJ Locke. Which one of those are you most excited about that they brought back?
I'd probably say Burton if I had to really pick one, just because I think he really kind of encapsulates what the identity of this football team wants to be. This team wants to run the ball. And I mean, he's really such a great option to have for this team. He's a great blocker. He can make receptions out of the backfield. He can even run the ball a little bit if you need him to. And I mean, when I talk about him as a blocker, it's not only as a run blocker. I mean, so many times last year, I broke down the fact that like on third down, when Denver needed a pure drop back situation, yes, they had Samaje Perine, who was also very good at pass blocking, but the guy they trusted most was Michael Burton. So I think getting him back on a reasonable contract makes a lot of sense. I think he's probably a top 5, top 8 fullback in the entire league. Genuinely mean that. And I mean, yeah, just a great piece to have on this team. Also a really good special teams player, which is kind of a theme with a lot of these guys. Like, these are all just kind of guys that I think when we talked about, we've been talking about the culture shift that's happening in Denver, or that's kind of hoping to be taking place. Guys like Michael Burton and Little Jordan Humphrey, who they're not flashy. These aren't sexy signings. Adam Troutman isn't going to be a guy that we're expecting to put up 900 yards and ATDs next year. But these are guys that at the base level do their jobs pretty well. They do a lot of different things for you. They put in a lot of effort, especially in the blocking department. Like, it's one thing to kind of be throwing a lot of money at guys and hoping that they end up kind of maintaining that star status, but you need to have guys that play their role well. And I think Denver did a good job this offseason of just keeping a lot of those guys that played their role well last year and then bringing in guys that have the chance to be upside. So I think every single guy they brought back is going to be pretty essential. I saw Robbie mention it. Like, the utility pieces in the blocking department they have are probably, I'd imagine, pretty good. Nate Adkins, really good. Little Jordan Humphrey, really good blocker. Tim Patrick coming back, really good blocker. Michael Burton, I mentioned, really good blocker. Like, they have guys that can kind of be auxiliary pieces to help out if they can find a true ace weapon. So I'm pretty excited about all the guys they brought back. They didn't really hand out money to anyone that I thought was unreasonable. So I thought all the signings make sense. Anyone that, what was your favorite?
Yeah, PJ Locke. PJ Locke was just, I mean, a lot of it is, okay, yes, the Broncos needed that third safety, and I thought PJ Locke stepped up last year and played really good. PJ Locke has been a guy through his entire career where it's every single time he's gotten an opportunity, he's absolutely made the most of it. I even remember his first games in the preseason as a rookie. Mm-hmm. Like, PJ Locke was noticeable. He was a guy that I was like, damn, who is this guy? And then every step he's taking advantage of his opportunity more. Obviously, friend of the show, we've had him on twice, and just knowing his story, I'm just really happy for the guy, man. I'm happy for him, like a ton. So shout out to PJ Locke. I'm sure we'll have him back on the show at some point this offseason, but I'm just stoked for the guy more than
100%. Anything. Yeah. And yeah, it's kind of interesting because they have probably 4 or so. I honestly had completely forgotten that DTY in week 17 tore his ACL. That was something that kind of slipped my mind.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, forgot about that. So I'm assuming he probably won't be ready to go at the beginning of next season, because I was anticipating a DTY, JL Skinner camp battle. That is probably not going to be taking place because I assume that DTY will still be recovering. Obviously, wish him, the best. So either JL Skinner is going to default in to be the 4th safety, right? Because they don't have another guy there. Or I do think that there might be a chance that they still do kind of throw a day 3 pick, bring in a UDFA, because, and again, it makes me sad because a lot of people, beat up on DTY. DTY, yes, he had a very rough game against the Dolphins last year. He hasn't necessarily shown a lot of safety. Guys, DTY is a really important special teamer, and I know a lot of people probably hear that, and they're like, oh, that's super replaceable. No, DTY is genuinely, like, he is ironed out a role for himself on the 53-man roster as a core special teamer. If they want to move off him, that's fine. I hope they're able to find an adequate replacement. But I feel like there's a lot of people that are just like, oh, DTY is already gone. It's kind of like, no, like this is a guy who over the past couple of years has really earned his spot and kind of continues to grow. And I mean, again, I think last year didn't really get a fair shot at the safety position. I mean, we talked about it leading into the Dolphins game and then afterwards, like that was about as set up for sadly failure as you can ever get for a first time starting safety and a first time starting inside linebacker, because that was the first game Drew Sanders had to start. Like it's rough business. No one had really figured out the Dolphins offense yet. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, or actually I don't think Waddle played in that game. Or was it? Whatever. It was a tough situation. So I'm not as out on DTY as I think the public is, but yeah, I don't think he's going to be ready to go for the starter next season. So I think there is a chance we still see another guy kind of added to that room, but it'll be interesting to watch because yeah, I mean, they've kind of filled a lot of, I think, the immediate needs on the team outside of, I think, center and quarterback.
Center and quarterback. And okay, so
I know there's more than that.
I think linebacker, inside linebacker, as long as like you're sitting there thinking Drew Sanders is an edge. And that's a question maybe to ask you real quick, because I've been curious about this, especially because they haven't gone out there. They brought back Griffith, but they don't really have anybody else. Mm-hmm. I'm a skeptic. I'm not sure I believe George Payton into the edge thing right now. That might just be his opinion and not the coaching staff's. I don't know, but like if I were just looking at the offseason and how they've handled that position, I would say he's probably still an inside linebacker.
That would kind of be my assumption as well, but I also think like, I don't know, there's a lot of time left. Inside linebacker isn't a position you have to really, I don't know, do a lot to fill that need. It is a position where you need serviceable players. So I don't want it to be a position they completely ignore, because I mean, it was a couple of years ago, I think, where they had like no one at linebacker. I think I remember the Browns game where it was one of the Vic Fangio games where they just had guys going down like flies. Like it was really bad. I want to say they were on like their sixth inside linebacker. They were playing safeties in the box, like, and they just couldn't stop a run over and over and over. So you do need serviceable pieces. So I'm kind of hoping that they do bring in some kind of more serviceable guys. Again, Jonas is a guy that I really like coming off injury. Singleton is a guy I like kind of coming off a down year. Drew Sanders, we don't know what they're going to do with him. So it is a question mark. Justin Sternad is obviously a guy that I think is purely a special teams player at this point, but who knows? Maybe the coaching staff has more plans for him. I think they kind of need to do a little bit more at the position, though. And then as for the Drew Sanders thing is kind of, I see you commenting here that these two I kind of relate to the same point, the center point. I'm sorry, I just took down whatever you were trying to say. So Edved796 asks who starts at center. The smoke has been that they're high on Luke Wattenberg and Alex Forsythe. I'll be completely honest. I'll believe it when I see it. I think that is kind of the standing statement for now. And here's, I guess, my argument against those guys. And this isn't me trying to beat up on those guys. Those guys might be very good, and maybe they are really high on those guys. If the plan is to go with a rookie quarterback, I really, really dislike the idea of having your second year, sixth round pick or, Luke Wattenberg be your center. We talked about this when Drew Lock was the quarterback or was going to get his first year as a rookie, how much when you have a rookie quarterback, I really like you having a veteran center to help with some of the pre-snap stuff, to help you diagnose blitzes. That's a very important thing. Like we've seen a lot of teams have a lot of success with that. So I do hope if the grand plan for Denver is, hey, we're going to really try to throw our bag at getting a rookie quarterback this year, I do really hope they at least make an addition of some kind of veteran to that room, because having like your quarterback and your center are the brain of your offense. Having both of those guys be learning on the fly as rookies is just, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask of anybody. So that's not me trying to beat up on Forsythe or Wattenberg. That's just me kind of sitting here being like, man, I have a hard time believing Drew Brees, a guy that throughout his entire tenure in New Orleans and what we watched him do with the Saints, bolstered the fuck out of the interior out of that Saints offensive line. I have a hard time sitting here saying, yeah, he's probably fine just rolling with that sixth round pick from last year or seventh round pick or whatever Forsythe is. And again, could completely be proven wrong.
How do you think they address it? Do you think it is via free agency, or do you think it comes in the draft at some point? Or like, I guess having a rookie center with a rookie quarterback wouldn't help either. So you do think it would come through free agency?
Free agency. And again, when I'm saying a veteran center, I'm not saying they got to pay $8 million and get a really good guy or something like that. Right. Genuinely, I think just having an experienced guy. I've talked about Will Clapp, who is a guy who has played for Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi, who Will Clapp has not been very good. Will Clapp isn't necessarily a guy I'm very excited about, but hey, man, I think you need bodies that know what they're doing. We talk about having your best 5 on your offensive line. And again, I'm not trying to bash these guys. I've just, they talk about how high they are on these guys. And it's kind of like, okay, but like, I don't know. I'm just not super bought into it yet. I feel like that's kind of just hyping up the guys you have on the roster until you get something better. So if those do end up being the guys you roll with, you can be like, well, that was the plan the whole time.
Yeah,
but
no, that makes sense. That makes sense, Frankie. And we have another that I think that makes perfect sense because, yeah, I don't think you want a young center snapping to a young quarterback. That doesn't make a lot of sense just for the pre-snap stuff, like you mentioned. D-Bronx says he actually went back to that quote the other day, and he's referring to the quote about Drew Sanders. And Peyton said he thinks Sanders ends up at outside linebacker.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Didn't make it seem like it was a lock. So I think that is telling. I did notice that as well. Yeah. I'm not so sure that the coaching staff might agree or whatever. It feels like he was just giving an opinion.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say this. I mean, the makeup right now of the Broncos defense seems to be we are going to have really good block eaters and penetrators in the interior, and we're going to have insane athletes on the edge, which is, kind of understandable. That's kind of where the NFL is going. But that seems to be the base level of what Vance is trying to do with this defense, Mm-hmm. And in that regard, Drew Sanders does offer you a lot of versatility. I think we need to kind of think of the way Vance is building this defense as kind of the way that Brian Flores is building his defense. And I think, he might be hoping that Drew Sanders can kind of play that, like, who's the guy they just signed? Like Andrew Van Ginkel or whatever, the dude from the Dolphins last year, like kind of play a role like that. Your Swiss Army knife linebacker where you kind of have this guy doing everything. I think that could kind of be what they want Drew Sanders to do. And that would make a lot of sense because, again, I think that we're going to see another evolution of Vance's defense this year as he gets more of his guys. And I think that that's actually a good thing because, again, I think that's kind of the direction we're seeing the league shift. You're seeing so many more teams just beat the hell out of you on the ground. So you need these big guys along the interior. You need to play bigger fronts. You need to play odd fronts with having 5 guys up there. Like, I do think it is a bit of a smart decision by Vance, but I think that also is going to kind of adjust how we look at a lot of these guys where Drew Sanders might be playing outside linebacker, but he still might be dropping a majority of the time. Is I guess the only thing I've been thinking more and more as I think about this, like, I don't think we should look at this anymore as being like a hybrid Vic Fangio defense because I'm not sure that that's what it's going to be going into this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me look. I mean, the people are just charmed. Shout out to everybody in the chat, by the way. Shout out to everybody in here. We love you guys very, very much. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. This is a fun episode. So let's get into the main topic, though, Frankie. We spoke enough about the centers and everything like that. I haven't got your opinion on this yet. What is your opinion of the Broncos like not having a veteran quarterback other than Jarrett Stidham, but not going out and signing a guy at quarterback so far through free agency? And no trades have happened, nothing. To me, I mean, I don't really care because I'll give my little speech real quick. I did the same thing yesterday. It's just, I think you're going into free agency, and unless you were going out to get Kirk Cousins, you are picking from a bargain bag of quarterbacks that we all know aren't good enough. Of course, you have different levels of not good enough. One guy's better than the other, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, none of them are good enough. So I don't really care that the Broncos missed on Sam Darnold. Like, I don't care at all because Sam Darnold was never going to be good enough. I've seen Sam Darnold in multiple situations now, and he was not good enough. So I don't care that they missed out on him because the next guy that they pick up is also not going to be good enough. But what do you make of this whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my biggest takeaway would be it's still so early, like there's so many people panicking and it's like, guys, like we might get to training camp and there might be a veteran that's available for a 7th round pick that Denver can go get. Like I think that's kind of the big thing to kind of keep in mind here. It's the 4th day of free agency and the second day that players can actually sign with teams. I get that the market is drying up. I get that there's a lot of panic happening, but it's kind of like, again, this is what the market was going to be. There aren't a ton of huge upgrades, and the quarterbacks that are left are going to be available for super duper cheap. As far as missing out on Sam Darnold, it's a bummer. It does seem like they were kind of paying attention to what that market would be, but I'm not upset that they didn't pay $10 million for a season to Sam Darnold. That's a lot of money. Guys like Joe Flacco are getting pretty big contracts. Gardner Minshew got like $25 million from the Raiders. Like, that's just how much backup quarterbacks are. And I'm not even trying to beat up on those contracts, but I'm not too mad at Denver for saying, you know what, like, are these guys really massive upgrades over what we have in Stidham? And again, I'll be the guy to say this because, you know, me and Robbie did a full episode watching Jarrett Stidham last year. Jarrett Stidham's fine. You know, Jarrett Stidham can operate this offense at an adequate level. Is it going to be super flashy and exciting? Probably not. Is he going to set records in this offense? Is he going to have like a 3-to-1 touchdown ratio or something crazy? Probably not. But is he going to be like the worst quarterback in the NFL? I really don't think so. I really think that with him operating the Sean Payton offense, he probably ends up somewhere around like the 20th to 26th, 28th best quarterback in the league. And yeah, there are probably Broncos fans are like, that fucking sucks. Guess what? That's been Denver for the past 8 years. So is it really that different? You know, just one more year of like, hey, there really wasn't a great option. It seems like they were keeping tabs on the big swings they could have made. They were apparently thinking about Kirk Cousins, but it just wasn't in the cards this year. There still is the opportunity that they go make a big splash in the draft or do something like that. But at the end of the day, them kind of staying pat with what they have really isn't that big of a deal. As for the Fields conversation, he's kind of a perfect example of the quarterbacks that are left. Like, I mean, everyone's talking about it. There aren't really starting jobs left, guys. Like, any of the quarterbacks left on the market, their value is so low that if they want to go get, you know, I can't even think of like who a random backup is. Andy Dalton still in the league? That's going to sound, yeah, like you can go get insert random placeholder quarterback during training camp for a 6th round pick. There you go. There's your veteran option for Denver this year. And that's fine for me. I don't know. If there was one thing I wanted to be upset about, it's probably not being in on the Mac Jones trade. Mac Jones is just a fine, like, he's going to be in the NFL. He's probably a fine backup, if not an above average backup. And he's making $2 million this year. That's probably the one I'm maybe a little bit like bummed they missed out on, because they do have, I think, they have enough 5th round picks where they could have beaten out the Jaguars offer. But I'm also just, you know, it's like, I mean, I was really thinking about this with the upside thing. It's fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a random spiel, but there was Mario posted the poll the other day about which quarterbacks, and it was the Jacoby Brissett, Sam Darnold, whoever. It was a nightmare for me to look at. And everyone's argument for like guys like Sam Darnold was that, oh, they have this upside. And I want to be like, do they? Like, what is really the % chance that Sam Darnold at this point in his career becomes an above average starter? Because we're not looking for a mid starter, a below average. You want an above average starter. What are the chances he becomes that? Less than 1%? Less than 2%? So it's like, you know, I'm not that mad about it. It's kind of what it is. Andy Dalton's in year 2 of his 2-year contract with Carolina. See if they'll give him up. Like, I don't know. There are options out there that's like, if they really need to, like, oh, we need to find a backup, I think they can do it, because once it's after the draft, teams are going to have guys that they're willing to move on from because they'll just have too many guys on their roster. So that's going to be my thing. I'm not worried about it.
I don't really, it doesn't really bother me. Also, it's a rebuild year. I don't really care. Like, I promise I really don't. I mean, of course, I really don't want to see another quarterback with no pocket presence play for the Broncos. I might age like a president, but at the same time, like, I think that's happening regardless. Yeah. Like, I don't care. There's just not an option out there where you're getting a starting quality quarterback in free agency or via trade right now. It's not happening
for the money that the Broncos have.
Yeah, and even if not, Kirk Cousins was the only one, really. So you're just not getting that. And that's something you're going to have to swallow the pill about. I am curious, though. I think that if they were looking for a placeholder for the year, they might have been more aggressive into it. I'm interested in your thought on this. They might have been more aggressive in that market if they did not feel comfortable drafting a rookie. Do you think that is the case, or do you feel like they just feel absolutely comfortable with the room of Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's something like that. Again, I think it's just that they aren't in a rush. The market kind of determines itself. We watch this musical chairs happen every single year where there's going to be a handful of quarterbacks left over at the end of it that are willing to kind of get a chance to play. And right now, Denver has that opportunity to offer one of these quarterbacks. Like, hey, we offer you a legitimate chance to start. That has a value for a lot of these guys. And then, I mean, I think it says more about Jarrett Stidham. Like, again, as much as this is kind of painful, or we watched it last year, Jarrett Stidham looked fine. He didn't set the world on fire, but he didn't look horrible. He he didn't look like he couldn't operate the offense. He won a game for the team. I'm not gonna say he won the game for the team like he did it all, but like he won a game with the team against it was against the Chargers, whatever. But yeah, like Stidham is okay. And again, for what we're seeing backup quarterbacks go for, or these placeholder quarterbacks go for this year, Jarrett Stidham costs $5 million, and we're watching backup quarterbacks like Joe Flacco sign for $9 million. Easy decision, I think. Easy decision. And you still have the upside. Like, not that there's much, but there's still a little bit of upside with Stidham. You don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I don't, like I said, it's whatever. So let's move on here. What do you think? Do you think any of the needs for the Broncos have changed in if you're going to the draft, you're on your draft board, have any needs changed? Has anything changed at all based off of what the Broncos have added in free agency?
So, and we mentioned this, I think that they can I think they've done a good job of doing what they've done the past couple of years of, as we approach the draft, I do expect this team to kind of enter with no quote unquote major gashing holes where you're like, who the hell is going to start here? They have to use a first round pick here. It does seem like they've kind of done that a little bit, adding in a guy at safety, bringing back Troutman, bringing in another defensive lineman. So, again, center, I think, is a spot that they could look at, but as much as they do have guys that they could put there if they need to. And then quarterback is obviously the big one where it's like, what are you going to do? But I do think that this is kind of one of those things where I wouldn't say it's changed, but I think it's gotten easier for them to kind of BPA throughout the draft. I do think that they're kind of in a position right now where you are maybe not stoked with where you're at. And again, there still are going to be more moves to make. Again, 4th day of free agency. I don't want people being like, they don't even have a center. Is Garrett Bowles even coming back? And that's something we'll talk about later. But as it currently stands, and as I expect it to be by the draft, I don't think that this team is going to have any major glaring holes outside of QB. I think we'll all be saying, we need a QB, but I think they've done a pretty good job of that. So as far as needs, I'd say safety maybe went down a little bit, but as I talked about earlier, I still don't think it's off the chart. I think defensive line, you're maybe saying, this isn't a glaring hole. You don't need a 4th guy, but I'd really like them to bring back Mike Purcell. I still think that is an area where if they wanted to make that unit a strength, which I think would be smart, and we're seeing a lot of the best teams in the league do that, that's still a place they can look to add in the draft. So I don't know. I don't think any of the needs changed too much. I think they kind of lightened, if you will, where now they are getting more to a point where it's wants now. It's what do we want for this team? Do we want to go rookie quarterback? Do we want to add an upgrade to the receiver room at like Brock Bowers, or maybe if a receiver slips? Do we want to go tackle for the future? Now I think they have more flexibility to go for their wants as opposed to being forced into a need.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But for me, I mean, we come to the same conclusion here, but my draft needs haven't changed a bit. They have not changed one bit at all. Just because when you're looking at the draft, you're seeing that, especially with the first round picks or the second round picks, you're looking at not just their rookie year, but who is going to be good beyond that. And the Broncos before and now still don't have the building blocks at premium positions, and that's where you want to draft. So I don't really nothing's changed for me whatsoever. I think the same I felt before is the same I feel now. Absolutely there. I mean, maybe we thought Bowles would be traded at one point or another or something like that, but there was always the possibility that he wasn't. The same way like Sutton maybe was traded, but he wasn't.
I think so that should be our next topic I want to talk about. I want to talk about those guys and DJ Jones. But finish what you're saying.
No, I'm all good. We can move on here. So yeah, the Broncos. So yeah, lead us into that one, Frankie.
Do you think those 3 guys are on the roster next year? DJ Jones, Garrett Bowles, Courtland Sutton. Do you feel like they are staying in Denver
or the year after this?
Next year.
Okay, so wait, what do you mean? So the year after this one?
No, this upcoming season. Do you think that any last minute things happen, any draft day trades? Do you think that these guys are staying on the team?
I mean, there's a possibility on draft day one of them moved after someone fell to a position you didn't expect him to, and you're like, oh, I'm drafting that guy and I'm trading this guy. That's possible, but I would bet no. I would say no. I think specifically because the Broncos are looking at this like, hey, we really want a rookie quarterback. If a rookie quarterback falls to us, that would be fantastic. They may even have plans of trading up. I don't know. But if you do have a young quarterback inserted, you don't want to have no offense whatsoever. You want to have Garrett Bowles. You want to have Cortland Sutton around. So I would bet no.
Yeah. So I'd rank them. I do think you're right. I do think most likely all three of them stay. If I had to rank them in likelihood of staying, I think Bowles is probably definitely staying. I think you're right. It seems like I don't know what they do at left tackle unless they really wanted to go with a rookie. And I can't imagine they'd be like, we really want to have a rookie offensive tackle. So I don't think that's what they're doing. I think Bowles is kind of staying here. DJ Jones is kind of a question mark for me because I am very big on they should keep DJ Jones. I know there might be a lot of people that are like, oh, they can get cheaper at the position. I know that's kind of an argument, but as we've seen with the defensive line market in the past couple of years, and especially this year, like that market has exploded. If you want a defensive lineman that is like a starter, he's going to cost you at least $10 million unless you are a true contender and you can get guys to take discounts. So I'm not confident in their ability to really be able to replace DJ Jones with a better option. And in my opinion, I think they'd be better just to ride him out through the end of the year. And after next season, hope that another team gives him a big deal and you can, or not a big deal, but gives him a decent deal and you can start playing the comp pick game. That's just my opinion on that. But I guess there is the possibility a team throws a day 3 pick on him on draft day. And then Sutton's the one I want to talk about because I am not sure. Like, I do think Sutton is like almost guaranteed on the roster, but, and I talked about this in the group chat with you, I've been trying to think of ways that Denver can get up to that 4th overall pick. Because obviously I think that's where they're going to need to probably be if they want to do the big swing up for JJ McCarthy or whatever quarterback you're hoping falls to 4. I think they're going to have to get ahead of a lot of these teams. And I think the best position to do that is at 4. If you want to go up to at late 8 with Atlanta, that's fine. But then again, you run the risk of the Vikings going up to 4. So I think if you really want to ensure you're getting the guy you want, that's where you got to be. So if you're going to do something like that, you have to outbid the team that's 11, that's Minnesota. If I am the way that I think that it could possibly happen is if you can convince a team like Arizona that Cortland Sutton has a lot of value for them, if they're trying to evaluate, like, I don't know if you've looked at their receiving core right now after they lost Rondale Moore, who was kind of a running back for them anyway, but they are very light in the receiver department. Like Greg Dortch is a fine player, but I think he's probably their best receiver right now. And he's a pure slot guy. Like they don't have a lot of receiving options. So it wouldn't shock me if they did have a little bit of interest in possibly getting a guy like Cortland Sutton while adding all that value. But they're like right now, they literally have Marvin Harrison Jr. in hand. So it would be pretty hard to be like, hey, team that's about to take like one of the most incredible receiver prospects in history. How about Cortland Sutton instead? That might not work, but I have been thinking because I can't lie. It felt pretty likely that Cortland Sutton was probably going to be gone entering this offseason. That them keeping him around does have me wondering, like, obviously I think plan A is they have plans for him, or like, option 1 is they have plans for him. But there is part of me that wonders, could Cortland Sutton be a trade piece for them to use on draft day? Because he is a proven valuable target that a team with a young quarterback or that's looking to have a young quarterback is going to have interest in. Like he is a true X receiver. You can line up in multiple spots. He helps you in the red zone. He's a downfield target. He blocks. Cortland Sutton is a solid player. So if one of these teams that already has quarterback figured out, like maybe they have interest in moving down with a team that has a guy like Cortland Sutton. Like it's too bad, obviously, that they're in division, like a team like the Chargers, because man, like a team like it would be easier to get up to 5 than 4. And I mean, man, they just lost Mike Williams. You could imagine them possibly having some interest in Cortland Sutton. But again, this is all conjecture. Who knows if that's even a possibility? But that's been my little thought on how they could possibly get up to 4. And the only reason Cortland Sutton is probably on my, like, I think that they all probably have at least like an 80% chance of being on the team. But Cortland Sutton's probably at like 85 for me. And that 15 is purely because of that reason.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think that is fair. Like, I think it is possible that any of these guys are traded just on draft day for whatever the case may be. If it's moving up, whatever it is. I mean, hey, yeah, if it were between Cortland Sutton and me getting up to a quarterback by Cortland Sutton, you're up out of here, buddy.
Right.
Like that's kind of just how that would go in my mind. D-Bronx, I can't find it anymore, but he commented in here and said I could see any of them traded at the trade deadline as well. I think that's extremely possible. I would say likely for some of these guys. just because if the Broncos do if they don't draft a rookie quarterback, I think the value for some of these guys goes down dramatically. I think part of the value of keeping these vets around on offense is because I want it to be comfortable for my rookie quarterback. If there's Jarrett Stidham back there, I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care who Jarrett Stidham's throwing the ball to.
Well, I mean, or even outside of trading them, I mean, I think Garrett Bowles is going to get another decent NFL contract. I don't know about Sutton necessarily. I'm sure he'll get a fine one, but I don't know if he'll get like a close to the top of the market. But I mean, you can even just play the comp pick game with those guys. Let Garrett Bowles go sign a 3-year, $60 million contract somewhere, play it cheap in free agency. You get a 4th-round pick.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right too. That's fair. Although I'm the comp game confuses me, man. Every single time, like I'm sitting there thinking Lloyd Cushenberry is going to get us a comp pick, and from what I hear, that's not going to happen. I don't understand the whole situation. I don't get it at all. I know they're trying to keep that formula secret, but everyone's kind of already figured it out. I'm not one to even know, so I don't know. I have no idea how that works. It's confusing. So, yeah, the other news is Zach Allen and Ben Powers, free agents last year, come to the Broncos, and now they both kind of look like value signings to me.
100%.
Yeah, so just kind of break that down, especially the Ben Powers one. The guard market exploded this offseason. So, yeah, break that down in Ben Powers. Now,
so I mean, we'll talk about it with both the guards, but I mean, Ben Powers last year signed for, I think it was like 3 years, $39 million, or maybe it was 4. I don't know. A lot of people at the time were being like, oh man, Ben Powers got paid a lot of money, which it did kind of seem like. But I mean, now this year, we're seeing any guy that I think is a starting caliber or even like average guard, maybe slightly above average. Like Robert Hunt is a good player. Landon Dickinson is a good player, but I don't think either of these guys are like true elite level interior guys. And they broke the bank. Like, I don't know if they're necessarily like too many steps up above Ben Powers. Ben Powers did disappoint a little bit last year. He wasn't the best in one-on-ones on pass pro, but if you're having an average guard at a position that right now seems like it costs $20 million, Ben Powers costs $13 million next year. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Zach Allen, then guys, like I keep getting into discussions with people. I don't like, again, and we were talking about this last week. It's the whole double negative where like people think like, oh, you're maybe not a great player and you're on a bad defense, so I'm going to double hit you, where it's like Zach Allen was a good player last year. He was just on a bad defense. So people think Zach Allen's like not good. No, guy, like look at the numbers, guys. Zach Allen was one of the best interior defensive linemen statistically in the league. He played a shit ton of snaps. He was really good against the pass. He was really good against the run. Yes, guys, Denver's run defense was really bad last year. That does not mean every player on Denver's defense is bad against the run. I want to make that very clear. Yes, like Zach Allen and DJ Jones can still defend the run. Mike Purcell can still defend the run very well, but they were a part of a bad run defense. So everyone now thinks that they suck at the run, and that's just not the case. Zach Allen was a top 15 defensive lineman, in my opinion, last year, an interior defensive lineman. I don't want to encapsulate edges. That would obviously get messy. Zach Allen was a top 15 interior defensive lineman last year. Top 15 interior defensive linemen are getting paid $25 million a year. Zach Allen's making $15 million this year. That's fantastic. Like, that is straight up wonderful. He's 26, so, I mean, he's still an ascending talent, too, which is really exciting. So I just want to, I'm the number one in the George Payton hating fan club. I like to beat up on that guy. But these contracts ended up being given out by Denver, whoever you want to give the credit for. They have aged very well. I know a lot of us were questioning why they were spending so much last offseason. It seems like I'm crediting where things I completely don't know, but they could have foreseen that, hey, the guard and the defensive tackle market is about to explode. We need to lock up some guys now. And they did that, and now it exploded. And now, we'll get into this now. If you're a top-level guard like Quinn Miners is, you're going to get like $28 million a year. You're going to get a lot of money. Like it's going to get crazy out here for Quinn Miners' extension next year. And that's something Denver needs to really think about because, guys, Quinn is truly an all-pro talent. Like all pro. There are very few red flags. He has not had injury history. He's still a young player. He's a great scheme fit for what Sean likes to do. Like Quinn is the type of guy that you reset the market for. And right now that market has never been higher. So, man, it's going to get interesting seeing what Denver decides to do with Quinn.
Yeah, and you're going to have to re-sign him. That's what I think. You're going to have to, man. You can't just let you can't let a young, promising player like that leave your team. He's one of like 2 actual building blocks on this team. Like when I refer to building blocks differently than other people, I'm meaning guys that I think are winning on the next version of the Broncos that is winning as well. Like they're like building blocks and being reasons for the winning. Quinn Miners is one of the young, talented players on this team, and the Broncos don't have a lot of them. You need to at least retain some. You can't just leave Patrick Surtain as your only real guy. So I think that is imperative that the Broncos re-sign him. Hopefully Quinn doesn't hit him over the head too bad, but he will.
I mean, and he should. Like,
he should.
And I want to say right now, I mean, I think I said this last offseason before the year even started, but Quinn Miners is probably one of the best values along the offensive line in the entire NFL right now. He costs the Broncos $1 million next year. He should cost them $25 million. He is truly one of the best values in the entire league, and Denver needs to recognize that and be smart and not drag their feet on this, because he again, the market is only going up. Teams are recognizing, like, man, we don't just need to have good tackles and we'll figure out along the interior. We need 5 guys. That's why the guard market is exploding so much, because holy shit, defensive tackles are aliens. Like Aaron Donald and Chris Jones and Dexter Lawrence and all these dudes, they go one-on-one with our guards. So if we're only paying big money to our tackles, holy shit, we're in trouble. So yeah, like we're watching guards get absolutely blown up, and they deserve it. So Quinn, I hope they're able to retain him services, because I mean, that's why I think you take the bigger cap hit this year. You need the space for his and Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, they'll have the money. They'll have the money to do
like,
it.
Straight up set aside like $60 million a year for those 2 players. And you're good to go.
That's craziness. Last thing I want to hit on is Justin Simmons still a free agent. What do you make of that? I think that's really weird. I like the Titans thing. I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to go see him play for a contender when that Titans smoke came out. I just don't understand why nobody would want to sign him. I mean, maybe it's what he's asking for and he still thinks he can get it and the value's just a lot lower. Or is it just like people don't want Justin Simmons right now?
It's got to be the safety market, man. Safety market is so cheap. You can get again, this is what we were talking about with why they cut Justin Simmons and why it was so hard. I mean, I was talking about this. A lot of the teams that would trade for Justin Simmons simply don't have the cap space to take on his contract. Like the contending teams that are trying to win Super Bowls, they spent all their money already. They don't have $18 million. So I don't really know, what the right landing spot is going to be. I was really hoping he would land in Green Bay. I thought that would be a lot of fun. He has ties to some guys on their coaching staff. Like, thought that would make a lot of sense. That didn't end up happening. I think we could still see him end up going back to Philadelphia, but they signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I don't know if they'll end up making another move there, but I mean, Justin deserves big money, and I don't think we're going to see Justin just take like a 2-year, $12 million, $15 million contract like we're seeing some of these guys sign for just because he wants to contend. So, I mean, the reason I put this on here, and this is going to sound, I'm going to be tinfoil, I don't think this is happening. There's probably like 0.2% chance, probably not happening. You think Justin would come back? Or you think Bridges burned?
I think that
Bridges burned. Okay.
I think Bridges burned. Justin was kind of too well thought of, I think. It was like one of those things. I don't think you can get rid of a legend and bring him back. And I'm not saying Justin Simmons is a legend. I'm not trying to say
he is. I think he is.
You think, okay, there we go. So, yes, like Justin Simmons is great for the community and great person and also an awesome football player. I just don't think you can cut bait with that type of guy and then try to bring him back right after. Yeah, that's tough. I think there's too much disrespect involved when you are the face of the franchise.
I feel that. I mean, the only reason I wonder is because the market sets the price, right? Denver, it seems like, was obviously not in a position to be able to play Justin Simmons, but if the rest of the league says Justin Simmons, maybe his value isn't so much. I just wonder if there's a world where Justin, like, obviously he's not trying to move his family out of Colorado, I'd imagine. If there was an opportunity for him to, like, hey, man, you can just have the same job back and we'll bring you back at a cheaper cost. I wonder if it's possible. Obviously, again, I said this already. I'm not saying that it's even close to likely. I imagine it's probably, as close to 0% as possible. But I do wonder if, again, as we watch the money dry up on the free agent market, Denver still has a little bit of money left. As I was saying, I still think they could use another safety. You've got a guy who's been a legend and a great piece in the locker room. I'm not, Obviously, it's up to Justin Simmons, and they disrespected the shit out of him, and I don't expect it, but I wonder if there would be a world where that bridge could be mended. It was something that's kind of been crossing my mind a little bit.
Yeah, the safety market thing's just been wild to see.
Because, I mean, what contenders
it's been a
are
wild thing to see, man. Like, I don't think I expected Justin Simmons to obviously take, like, not get as paid as much on this next contract as he did the one before. I think that was obviously expected. I didn't expect us to be this far into free agency and Justin not have a team yet. And I'm sure the talks are still happening, and it's just and I feel very confident saying that the reason he isn't signed is because he's looking for a certain amount and the league's not giving it to him. It's just crazy to me. I maybe he's asking for some crazy price, but I just can't imagine that either.
Yeah. So I'm looking right now. I'm looking at teams right now with cap space because, I mean, that's going to be the big question is what team can afford to pay him. Like, so I think right now the contenders, you've probably got the Bengals, but they just brought back Von Bell, but they have a ton of money right now. The Eagles still have a good bit of change. It looks like they've got $40 million. Obviously, that's where Christian Parker went. That one makes a lot of sense. But again, they just spent really big money on a safety. Howie Roseman, as we know, is kind of one of those really smart GMs. It seems like he builds his team in a smart way. And the way to build a smart football team right now is not to spend a dick ton of money on your safety room. So paying Chauncey and Justin I don't think that's really in the cards. After them, you got like the Colts who have 31 mil or the Lions. The Lions could make a good bit of sense, but I want to say that they also just brought in a safety. They have Brian Branch, but he seems like more of their nickel guy. So I'm not sure. I'm just, again, I'm looking at this list. Like a lot of the big contender boys kind of spent already. Like that I'm just a little concerned. I mean, the Chiefs are kind of a team that's up there with money left to spend. That would obviously be a fucking nightmare for everybody. So I don't know, man. Like someone mentioned the 49ers. 49ers have no money. They're $4 million in the red. The Dolphins have no money. The Bills have no money. The Browns, the Cowboys, the Chargers, they have no money. These are the teams that are contending for Super Bowls next year.
Who was it? It was Michael Silver who was teasing Justin Simmons in an article for the Niners. Who was saying that's a possibility. I don't know how they get it done, but Michael Silver is...
Maybe if they do one of those trades where they move one of their receivers, but like it would, again, I'm not trying to, 49ers are obviously doing a great job building their team. I'm not going to throw stones. It would be pretty funny to me to trade a one of your dominant receivers like Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk, who, as we all know, a receiver is one of the most premium positions in the league right now, like one of the highest paid positions. It'd be very funny to trade one of those receivers and to use that money then on a safety, which is, as the league has kind of dictated, one of the lowest value positions in the league. Like that would be very much zagging while they're zigging. So, if that's what they want to do, and that's not me trying to take away from what Justin Simmons is, but like, I don't know. Yeah, Lions have a pretty decent safety room. The 49ers have a pretty decent safety room. Like, I don't know. It's kind of reminding me, like, I'm not saying, I just don't know where he's going to land because I think Justin Simmons is probably going to want $12 million a year, $10 million a year. He's 29.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's the whole situation's crazy. I don't know. I have no idea. Frankie, is there any last things you want to hit on before we close out here?
Let's see here. You got any free agent? You got a favorite free agent you want Denver to sign? That's left over.
No, not right now. I don't.
You don't got a single guy?
No, not one that I'm just like head over heels about. No. Okay. Do you have one that you're like?
I've got one, but he seems very unlikely because I think this guy is also going to go to a contender. I would like Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney is very good, and for what their defensive line and what the Denver edge room needs, Jadeveon Clowney would be pretty fun. So I want him.
Coming off one of his best pass rush seasons ever too.
I was a Curtis Samuel wanter, but he ended up signing to the Bills. Yeah.
I like the Broncos signings they made because they make sense in the next timeline too with their age. And I'm looking at that. I don't know. That's I think those are a lot more valuable to me this year. And if you aren't looking at that next timeline, roll over the cap. Roll it over. That's how I'm looking at the whole situation. So yeah. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining us tonight. Shout out to all you guys in the chat. Make sure you guys are checking letstalkbroncos.com. We had 2 new articles go up today. We have articles going up every single day. I have a Brock Bowers scouting report coming up probably tomorrow. And then Frankie, I think, is going to hop on with me to scouting reports at some point here too. So that'll be fun. Anyways, guys, Make sure you're following Frankie at Frankie Films. Make sure you're following me at JR Trask. Until next time, go Broncos.